Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful people from around the world. Today, it is my privilege to welcome Atul Sinha. Atul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. I'm very happy to be on your show. Pleasure.
Thank you. Atul is from XLRI Jamshedpur. He's worked in the corporate sector with Voltas, Cadbury, Britannia, and Colgate. And then we will talk about his other life where he's actually pursuing a PhD in yoga. So, Atul, tell me a little bit about your early work.
I was very lucky to be thrown into the deep end of the swimming pool, or in this particular place in the flowing Brahmaputra. At the age of 24, I found myself in charge of the Voltas sales office in Guwahati, looking after the Northeast, and I had 50 people reporting to me. So it was an amazing experience at the age of 24, and I was completely like swimming on my own. And that really taught me a lot of stuff on tactics, on planning your sales, in leading people, in dealing with people issues, a distribution network. And that has really held me in good state as I grew higher and higher in the sales path as I went along. And later, when I moved to marketing as a brand manager, we were very lucky to have a wonderful teacher, Ranjit Salvi, and forever indebted to him. And he took a few of us under his wings, and everybody took under his wings went on to have flourishing careers. And he taught us the nuts and bolts of marketing. He taught us how to write a positioning statement, how to write a brand plan, how to do advertising brief. He taught us about market research, what you do in a product test, in an advertising test, concept test, all that stuff. So the grounding I got on marketing under him was absolutely priceless. So this, I would say, these are the two things from my early career, which laid the foundation of whatever I did later on.
And in such a successful corporate career and life after, what would you say are three key milestones that you think have been life-changing?
Life-changing. One, I think career-wise, one milestone was when I was in Cadbury, and I was in charge of the biscuit business. And since it was like a new business, even though in those days I was called a group product manager, today it will be called, I don't know what, a category manager or something. And it was a failure. The Cadbury failed in that venture. So it was emotionally very troubling for me. I was 30 years old at that time, and raring to go, and in our generation, failure was not as easy to embrace as it is for today's kids. So, but despite that, it taught me a lot. I think from that failure, I learned everything, the nuances of strategy I learned from that failure. And again, I was very lucky all through my career to have some great people mentoring me. And this time, I would name two people. One was Ashok Bijapurkar, who's passed on. He's no longer with us, but he was in rediffusion advertising.
Right.
And Gautam Rakshit also, who has passed on. And he has set up his own agency called Avenues of the Onida television fame. And both these people were superb marketing minds. And Ashok was, of course, very erudite. He was a PhD in advertising from IIM Ahmedabad. And Gautam had that combination of logic and a spark. He could like Onida itself. You remember the Onida campaign? It was absolute breakthrough. It was a completely against the run of things at that point in time. So with both these people, I learned a lot about strategy and handling the biscuit business, although it was a failure and it hurt me emotionally, but I learned a lot about strategy from that. So that I would say is certainly one turning point. The Two others, career-wise, was when we repositioned Britannia as Swasthkhaw Tan Man Jagao in the mid-90s. I can talk about that, but that was a very, very enriching experience. And the third one was when Colgate fought back the attack from Unilever in the early 2000s.
Okay.
So, but in terms of I would add a fourth, a life change was suddenly when I discovered Indian wisdom, and I delved deep into it, and that has been very transformative.
Amazing. So that I'm going to talk about you in detail.
Yes.
But a couple of questions on your corporate journey. You've been in brands and you worked for some of the biggest companies. What goes into building a successful brand?
Okay. So, this is like a typical textbook question, but what I'll do is I'll answer it from my own experience and my own perception, So I would say there are three things which go into building a brand, and I'm simplifying it.
Yeah.
And so in sequence, the three things are: one is all that goes into that work on how you fit the brand into consumers' lives, make it relevant, make it likable. Get consumers to love it, like it, and it fulfills the need. So they say, I need this process. There's a lot of things which go into that. So that is one aspect. The second is the product. I mean, I'm talking from FMCG perspective and not a survey. Even surveys, you can look at it as a product if you conceptualize it and generalize it. But the second is a product, and that's really the moment of truth. You can do everything, packaging, everything, but once the consumer comes in contact with the product is the moment of truth. That's when the product will succeed or fail. And the third thing is communication. These are the three pillars of building a brand. I would say, and this is arguable, and I've found it sometimes controversial, that I would say the main thing is the product. Okay. At the end of the day, as people, we want products. We want to eat a biscuit, enjoy a chocolate, see a Netflix movie, whatever it is. So the product is the main thing in the brand, right? And the three main things in the product is, does that product work? I mean, you have made a promise. Does that product deliver on the promise? How do I make the consumer believe that the product will work? That I have the expertise, whatever it is. I've put this in it. There's this famous ZPTO example of Unilever floor cleaner that long ago or something. Shampoo, Clinic shampoo or something. So something to hang your coat on, say this product works because of this reason. And the third aspect is, how do I get the consumer to like the product, fall in love with the product, feel for the product, feel for the brand. So these are three aspects of product.
Wonderful. So I'm going to now move to your other life, which you're currently so passionate about.
Yes.
First, tell me that after such a successful career in the corporate world, what made you turn towards looking at Indian scriptures, Indian history, which went beyond what we have learned, which is the Mughals and the British?
Okay, so there are two separate questions, but somehow connected. So let me put it this way: growing up, I didn't have any more of a spiritual mentoring from anybody in the family than you or anybody else. Correct. I mean, I had my nani who would do a puja every day, and my mother would also do a puja every day. That kind of stuff, but nobody sat with me and said, "Acha, ye Veda hai," and these are the wisdom and all that. I didn't pick up anything more than whatever anybody else did. When I began living in South India, I found a lot of people who had very good grounding in all that stuff, from a grandfather or a uncle who was a vidwan in some Veda or something or the other. But I didn't find that. That was not my background. And while in college, I was in SRCC in Delhi, and in college, I discovered this guy called J. Krishnamurti. And later on, I sent my daughter to his school, Rishi Valley. But the seed was sown when I was still in college as 18, 19-year-old. And I will not say that I understood everything which he said at that point in time. I was just 19 years old. But something stuck in me. And the one thing which stuck in me was that if you want to transform the world, all you can do is transform yourself. So if you transform from yourself, I cannot transform you or anything in the world. What I can do is transform myself. That is one idea which stuck in my mind from Krishnamurti. And the second thing which stuck in my mind from Krishnamurti is the three things which stuck. The second thing which struck was that a conditioned mind is a useless mind. If your mind is conditioned with ideology, past thinkings, whatever, you cannot think afresh. So he laid a lot of stress on keeping a mind absolutely free. A free mind can be creative, can contribute something new. So that was the second idea which stuck. And all the ideas stuck to me intellectually. It was not that I was living all that. It was just that I read it. I said, chai. And the third thing was he talked about a seamless movement inwards and outwards. When you're looking at a problem, you examine it outward and then go inward at the same time, seamlessly move in and out. There are three ideas of Krishnamurti that stuck with me. I'm very fascinated. So I kept reading. At that time, I didn't know what to read. So, whatever was a fad at that point in time, Dancing Woolly Masters and Tao of Physics and mainly Western books kind of thing, and Conversations with God later on. And all the people who wrote from California at that point in time.
Correct.
But around 6 years ago, a friend took me to this university from where I'm doing my PhD now, Savyasa. And there I suddenly discovered in talks that whatever I'm looking for and picking up bits and pieces from here and there is all there in our Shastras, completely laid out, complete, analyzed, and everything is there. And I got very excited. And I asked somebody over there, how do I learn the Vedas? I didn't know different Vedas and Upanishads also. I said, how do I learn the Vedas? So that guy smiled and said, why don't you join the PhD program? So I said, okay, I'll join the PhD program. And then it has been a fantastic journey.
Which university is this?
It's called Savyasa, Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhan Samsthana.
Okay.
In short, Swami Vivekananda Yoga University. It was set up by this scientist called H.R. Nagendra.
And where is it located?
It is in Bangalore.
In Bangalore. Okay.
It's a full-fledged yoga, Ayurveda, and naturopathy university. Does BSc, MSc, PhD, all that stuff.
Terrific.
So that's how it went there.
Okay.
The second question is also history. History was a slightly different route. I think it was around the 2014 election, and when BJP won. That time there was a lot of controversial discussions going on in every living room and social media. And once I stepped back and I looked at it and I realized that the idea of India is very fractured. So there are like 5-6 views on the idea of India, and all these views are like they are like the 5 blind men who went and felt an elephant, and they're not agreeing with each other. So I got it aroused my intellectual curiosity and said, why is the idea of India fractured? And so then I began to do some research, and I found that there are these many ideas of India. Very briefly, one idea of India is the civilizational idea of India, which is a great knowledge system, spirituality, dharma. So all that thing, the civilization that India lost over the last many years, many thousand years. And the other idea was, this whole blight of untouchability threw up one of our greatest scholars, B.R. Ambedkar. And so he viewed it, he was coming from there, so he viewed it slightly differently. But his view is very nuanced, and all of us claim Ambedkar, and none of us know him, and we claim him selectively.
Correct.
But the leftists do that, the Rashtrawadis do, everybody does that. But his idea was that this whole idea of Brahman, that means one reality, is something which he agreed with. And he said it's a great idea, it is the basis of democracy, is what he felt. But he also felt, which I don't agree, but he felt that the Hindus need to reject their Shastras as Buddha did and as Guru Nanak did. Without that, this whole caste hierarchy will not go away. It was his view. I don't agree with that. And of course, Vivekananda didn't agree with him. Savarkar didn't agree with him. But this was his view. So there was Ambedkar's idea of India, and both these are indigenous. And then you had the invaders' idea of India. So you had the Marxist idea of India, the colonialist idea of India, right? With this whole kind of a reawakening kind of a thing, you have people trying to grapple with what was India of yore. So you can call it revivalist or Renaissance, whatever you want to call it. So I found these are the different ideas, and I understood why people are not agreeing with each other, because they're all very ideological. Yeah, go ahead.
Wonderful. So, you went to this university, and the Swami Vivekananda University, and found out your spiritual calling, if I can use the term. But how does the average human being understand what is their spiritual calling?
There are two kinds, and this is also mentioned in the Shastras. The Sanskrit word used is mukshu and jigyashu. So there are two kinds of people. So one kind of person would be the more intuitive person, who is more into, what should I say, into bhakti, the more into experience. So would rather, sit in a temple or in a satsang and experience the nice feeling he or she gets. And then there's a desire to experience that feeling all the time. So that is one way people move into this spirituality. And the other is, what happened to me was this knowledge. The people who are more intellectually oriented, they are thirsty for knowledge. I had thirst for knowledge. I remember that talking to the guy, हमको वेदा सीखना है. बोला ये बच्चे ठीक रहो, PhD करो, धीरे-धीरे सीखोगे. So then start with Bhagavad Gita, then go here, go there. So it was the knowledge seeking. But ultimately it all converges. Whether you go from here, there, whatever, at some point in time, it is all yoga, So it all converges. But these are two main streams of thing. And basically flow with it. If it doesn't happen, don't worry. अगले जन्म में होगा. उसके बाद वाले जन्म. But ultimately होगा, because हमारा essential nature is that. Our essential nature is spiritual. So sooner or later we'll discover it.
Correct. So my follow-up question to that would be, like you said that you saw your nani and your mom doing some things. I also saw the same thing.
Yes.
And it's only, last 5-6 years that I started to rediscover, the Vedas and the Upanishads, and I went and did programs from Harvard on scriptures. And I was telling myself, imagine having to studying these things, scriptures of the world. When I did courses on Islam and Hinduism, etc.
Interesting.
But my question to you is that what stops us as parents? And I'm not, our children have grown up, but younger parents from introducing Indian scripture to our children.
Let's just step back. This is a global problem. So the research I'm doing for my PhD is on integrating yoga with education is my subject.
Okay.
That's where I'm working on. But what I've discovered through my research is, and I'm talking about the West, in the US and Europe, US, UK, in these countries, there are people who are coming out and saying that our children's psycho-emotional health is very poor.
Okay.
So there is a data from UN that 20% of our children and adolescents have one or the other emotional or cognitive problem, which is a huge number.
Correct.
So they are saying that we need to teach our children what is called social emotional learning, SEL, or basically making them emotionally more resilient and more solid personality, so that they can deal with emotional issues. So that is one thing scholars are saying. The second thing they are saying that our character has really fallen as a society.
Character in the form, in the sense of integrity.
In lots of forms, in the way we respect for elders, respect for teachers, respect for government, property. There's a whole lot of 10 factors in that. But basically they're saying that the character is under stress and character education is required. So again, I'm talking about the West, and I'll come to India, then we will understand the context. So in the West, the character education was based on the universal Christian values. I'm not talking about the sectarian or the ideological Christianity, But since they were Christian societies, they taught the universal values of love thy neighbor and do service to people, whatever it was, the good values, be honest and all that stuff. Which is good values, very good values. But with the society changing, with migration and becoming multi-religious, this became a political problem. So they stopped teaching all that in their schools.
Right.
In India, we don't teach our children, and we have Ramayana. If you just teach Ramayana, just one text Ramayana, if you teach our children in school, you teach them the good values.
Yes.
But we don't teach them, and we need to get around this. So my suggestion is, I think yoga is very, very important. It is proven. I mean, there is enough research, modern research I'm talking about, modern research to show that it works in personality building, in character building, even in cognitive development. So in all these three areas, it works. But introducing yoga in schools is still a challenge. It's more of a logistical challenge rather than an ideological challenge now at this stage. And it's accepted. It is seen as not seen as religious or something. It is accepted. So yoga is certainly a way in. And second is, the one school I worked with in Bangalore. It's an English medium school, and so what they do is they have once a week classes. They teach the Hindu kids Hindu stuff. They take the Muslim kids away and teach them the Islam, the Christian kids from the Bible. So they on their own, they're doing this whole character.
Right.
But unless we get into schools with that, it will be very difficult. It's a challenge, but I think with time you will see this improve.
Okay. Very interesting. So Atul, I've got time for 2 or 3 questions for you personally. My first question to you is that what does success mean to you?
Yeah, success means lots of things to lots of people. At different stages of my life, success meant different things. So there was a stage in my life where I was very anxious to succeed and prove. My father was a very successful man. He was the head of manufacturing of Tata Steel. So I had to prove a point to my dad also. So it's a very common story. But despite that kind of a thing, one trait which I had was integrity. So I was not overtly political, and I wouldn't backstab anybody, which sometimes worked against me, and which I have no regrets about. Yeah, so there was a time when I was anxious about succeeding, and then a time came when it didn't matter. Didn't matter. And right now, where I am, it looks like you have to always be curious, look for new experiences. Otherwise, you have to flow like a river. If a river stops flowing, it becomes a stagnant pond and dead. So you got to flow till you die.
I agree. That I agree with you completely.
You cannot stop and find your. Again, I talked to my father. Father was so work-oriented that after he retired, he had nothing to do. And he felt a loss. But I don't see that. I have lots of interests.
So my last question to you now: if you were a role model to millions of children, closely followed your life choices, what would be the one thing you would change in yourself?
I mean, what can you change? Your past is done. It's over. And, where you are today is because of whatever happened in the past. So some things you did, something was destined, So it is, what is there to change? I mean, I'm quite happy where I am, where I've landed up. And so there's nothing to change, number one. And number two is, as far as children are concerned, this role model thing is slightly overhyped. They all come with their own samskars. And all you can do is just give them an environment where they can discover themselves. That's all that is required.
Correct. Fair enough. Well said. So Atul, thank you very much. This has been such an amazing conversation. I'm grateful you took the time and spoke to us, and I wish you lots of success with your PhD.
Pleasure, Ashutosh. Really good talking to you, and hope to be in touch with you.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you for listening to the brand called You Videocast and Podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.